Hello everyone, my name is Shanalie Wijesinghe and I couldn't be more thrilled to be here today. The main reason being is I'm a former salon manager. I did that for like 12, 13 years of my life. I actually started out behind the front desk and quickly thought like, you know what, I'm gonna be a hairstylist. They make the most money, they get it, they're so cool, they're on the floor doing the whole thing. And as I got deeper into my career, I really fell in love with the business side of everything. I loved recruiting, I loved connecting with these people, and most importantly, I loved all the clients, and I kind of felt like I was like this host of a really, really cool party that was going on all the time. Those are the highs, right? I'm sure we can all relate. So when I started to think about this topic, right, navigating the new realities of the modern workplace, you know, we're gonna talk a little bit about productivity here, right? I started to realize, one, this is a massive topic, right? A lot of things have changed. And I feel like there's like one step that comes before all of this. So for me, you know, we're gonna talk a little bit about making every moment matter and really what that means here, right? We need to be making meaningful connections with our staff and also clients. So we're gonna be talking about how we take all of this amazing stuff that we learn at Data Driven and then we actually connect with our staff so we can actually have their buy-in with these new changes we're gonna make in these businesses. Because I promise you, if they're not bought into what you're doing, you're not even gonna be able to get them to sweep the floor correctly. We've probably all seen this, right? Where you think someone is tracking along with you and then in the end, they quit, you have no idea where they went, it's all confusing to you. So like I said, wrong way. We're gonna talk about making every moment matter. So I've noticed a lot with owners that I work with, especially the ones that have to also split their time behind the chair. Very normal, right? A lot of us do that. We focus so much on the energy that we give to our client. We make it all about the client, which we absolutely should. All of that is very meaningful. One of my mentors, you're gonna hear me talk about them a lot. I love them dearly. They're like family to me. One of them, his name is Benjamin actually. He was actually in that video too. He taught me a really valuable lesson. A couple of them, more so than one. But he told me that there's audio good? Okay. He told me that there's two clients of every single business. There's the people who come see you for services and products and all of that, and then there's the actual people working for you, right? These are your employees. So when it comes to your management style, you're clienteling left and right. It doesn't switch off just because you're talking to someone at the front desk or to someone behind the chair. You are clienteling the whole time. Because day by day, they have to continue to buy into it. And I tell everyone, I actually tell my best friend this all the time, no matter how much work you're doing and you're putting your best foot forward, there's always gonna be bad days, right? None of us are perfect. So the really important thing is if you have made those connections with the people on your team, it's gonna be way easier for you to make all of those changes here. So, straight out the gate, this is probably going to be a little more people and relationship driven than you're used to seeing at a conference called Data Driven, but I promise you the people and the data go hand in hand because these are still human beings that we are dealing with. And you are one too, right? You can't be perfect all the time. So you need to have that meaningful connection to be able to get them to understand something as simple as productivity. So why does this all matter to us? I get to head up a really amazing team of people just like you. We've gone through the same struggles. We survived the pandemic. We've seen the workforce change time and time again. So everyone you see on this slide is actually someone who either was behind the chair or was a former salon manager, spas, whatever it may be. They might have even been a service provider right up until they jumped onto the team. So everyone is extremely passionate about this and we all look at ourselves as real advocates for the industry. So like I mentioned, I started my career behind the front desk. Here's some funny pictures of me way back when. And I fell in love there. I was able to really flourish in this business. I tell everyone in high school, it's funny to me that I'm like the director of education somewhere, because I was a troublemaker, one of those disruptors you're talking about, Mr. Gambuza. So that was me through and through, right? When I entered the workforce in this industry, I quickly realized I'm a good businesswoman. And what happened there with every single teacher, there was a handful of good ones, but it was a missed opportunity, right? I didn't think I was intelligent, to be perfectly honest with you, right? Now I'm an educator and a writer, and I'm consulting for businesses every single day. I never dreamed when I was a teenager that I would end up here. So this industry has been a safe haven for many people like myself, and even you, right? We've all heard the story of the underdog in this world. So it's really important that we come together to figure out how we work with the new types of folks that we are seeing in this business. They're not wrong. They are bringing amazing talent and amazing creativity. And one thing I've really loved about the workforce I've seen is they're willing to get scrappy, but in the right way, right? They're willing to think outside of the box and really push the envelope on creativity to either hit those sales or get the work done, whatever it is. It's a very different type of individual that we're seeing now. So like I said, it's changing. But one thing that I will say is I believe it started changing long ago. I think we have a big focus on the pandemic doing this to us, right? I believe the pandemic was a catalyst to something that was already happening. Retaining bright individuals has always been an issue in our businesses. We've always talked about turnover. It was 2010 when I was at the front desk and someone told me they were going to lunch and then never came back, right? We've all seen that. I've even heard stories from an owner I know where he got a phone call from a woman he thought was just on her lunch break, and she let him know that she was driving to Ohio from like Maine to go get her boyfriend who was leaving her, right? So we've seen craziness when it comes to recruiting and being able to retain these individuals. This isn't a new problem, so it's really important that we stop looking at it like this is a pandemic, this is a post-COVID thing. Sure, we saw some changes, and we saw some amazing technology advancements. I know from Boulevard to all of our lovely technology partners here really showed up for the industry when it came to some of those advancements. I think that's amazing, right? Kind of ripped the Band-Aid off and pushed everyone out there the way they needed to. Now, here's the big one. When I work with owners, we need to look inward, right? It's not a them problem, it's very much us. We need to work on our own leadership and our own development, because I promise you, none of these people entering the workforce, myself included, no one wants a boss. We want a mentor. I want someone who's gonna not only teach me everything they know, but they're not gonna gatekeep it. When I came up in my career, in my early years, I started off at 18, fresh on the desk. I hit sales numbers like that. I love selling, I love clienteling, I have incredible memory, so it's very easy for me to see a phone number, know who it is, and go right into the whole script, right? That was so easy for me. If I didn't have the right mentors to then guide me to where I needed to be, I promise you I wouldn't have stuck around. This is incredibly important. I literally became an adult in this industry. I learned how to communicate. I take that form of communication and now I apply it to my personal relationships, because communicating is really where we're going to be able to win when it comes to these teams. It's incredibly important. So I'm not blaming you guys, don't worry, right? Because many of us became managers overnight, right? I was called to lead like many of you were. I hit those sales numbers, I made every client happy, all the service providers always wanted me handling all of their books and all of that, right? I was the trainer for anyone new. I was also the exit interview for anyone leaving, so I can understand what happened within the business before we lose this person, right? That's incredibly important. And side note, if you aren't doing exit interviews with the people that are leaving, you should start doing that. Transparency and empathy are gonna be key to all of this, right? So you are gonna need to connect with people in a different way than you're used to. I'm telling everyone, no more manager's island. I've worked in businesses where I used to get in trouble for being too friendly with the staff, being too close with them. Why are you on the phone with them till 10 o'clock at night? She's just going through a breakup, right? But that's really helpful information for me to know, because at the end of that week, if that person hasn't hit their goal for the week, I already know why. The issue right now is emotionally driven, right? So it helps me get perspective on what is going on with my team members. And more so, when they are confused or lost about something, they know I've created an environment that's safe enough for them to come to me and say, Shanalie, I don't get it. Walk me through this. Help me understand what's happening here. Most businesses will create that divide and make it very difficult for someone to admit that I made a mistake, or I didn't quite understand it. I don't get this, like work with me, right? A lot of folks attempt to make that reach and sometimes are reprimanded for it, right? This is something, you should have known this. You've been here for a year, right? Doesn't matter. Someone needs our help, we need their help. One thing I always tell everyone, I actually have an amazing educator on the team who actually started her career as a teacher. And she said something really incredible to me. How many of you have kids or kids in the family in this group here, right? A bunch of people. So if your child, let's say, is in the 1st grade and little Timmy is struggling, you want to know that that teacher in that class cares about your child and will actually develop them and help them get to where they need to be. I often use family and dating to relate back to the salon because we call them our family anyway. So why would we ever gatekeep good information? Why would we ever make it difficult for them to come to us, let them know there's a problem, right? We want to create these open spaces. So especially if you call your team a family, no more manager's island, right? You need to be there with your people, understanding what's going on in their world. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit how to do a really constructive one-on-one, and we're also going to talk about an exercise I used in helping my teams understand productivity, because you'll be surprised, they don't quite exactly know what that word means all the time, right? So there's definitely exercises that you can do to help them visually see where they can go, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Now, like I mentioned, we're going to create some meaningful connections. Now, everyone's heard of a one-on-one, so you're probably like, Shanalie, none of that's groundbreaking, right? But my theory is, if I'm doing quarterly one-on-ones with someone, by the end of the quarter, it's too late. If they have not hit their goal, I'm not going to save this quarter, am I? So for me, if I'm connecting with my staff members regularly and I can listen to their whole world, I can also coach them in real time. I can now be a player coach versus someone that's just reading them the past, right? In this moment, I can help them strategize. Hey, Emily's come in for haircuts, but she's never gotten color. Let's go ahead and try and upsell her on color. We can work together and be constructive in that way. So when we're actually having those one-on-ones, since I'm doing that all the time and not waiting for that one-on-one, I can let my one-on-ones be employee-driven. What do you want to talk about today? I often show up with completely empty notes on my agenda. Here and there, I'll give them some process, give them some updates that they need to hear that are uber important to them, right? But for the most part, I'm letting them talk. I'm letting them air out everything that's happened. Confusion on clients, right? Or this situation happened on the floor. Or you know what? I think this could be a really cool addition to the salon. When you start creating this space, you'll be surprised with the, again, I've said this already, but the creativity that they will bring and the collaborativeness. They feel like they're involved. They're part of the bigger picture. No one wants to feel like they're making their boss rich. Not me, not anyone. Right? They want to feel like they're part of something bigger. So that's actually what's really beautiful about this workforce. In the past, we used to see people that would clock in, clock out, this was my job, I'm gonna go home, live my life. There's no separation between personal and professional anymore. So drop that like right now. It is one world that really, I am one person. I can't be two different people, bottom line, right? So it's really important, again, that we're creating that space for them. So I'm actually going to share a QR code at the end of this presentation, and I'm actually going to give you this template and another one. So if you don't copy all of this down, don't worry, you're going to be able to get it sent straight to you. So what this is a breakdown on our one-on-ones. So what we're looking for is personal, performance, support, and development, right? Those are 4 categories that you should aim to hit when you are communicating in these one-on-ones. Hey Emily, what's going on in your life? I know you're just recently married, right? You want to have these engaging conversations. And the most important one that I'll touch on here, and we've also written that down, so again, if you don't grab it right now, don't worry, you're going to have it. In support, what does me supporting you look like? Because what's supportive to me, I promise you, isn't supportive to half of you in here, right? It looks different to each person. And it's so important that you hear from them directly on what that looks like and never make any assumptions. Because I've been blindsided by people who I thought were so bought in, loved it, and I wasn't connecting with them regularly, right? Because I thought they were good and they're a top earner, they're doing well, and boom, out of nowhere, a different salon's recruited them and they're gone. So this just isn't for your teammates that are, let's say, struggling a bit, right? I'm sure when we think of these types of sessions and this type of coaching, we immediately think of our problem children, right? And that's okay, but I promise you, your good ones need you too, right? It's your good ones that help carry your culture. They're the ones that Mr. Gambuza would say is a great mentor and shadowing and all of that, right? That is so true. I'm the biggest believer in all of that. But if you're not connecting with them and this is the person that's transferring your culture and doing all of this amazing stuff, like how can you truly know that they're happy? You know, so this isn't just about your underperformers. This is very much about your top performers as well. They want to be able to connect with you because again, like I said, we don't want bosses, we want mentors, we want real leaders who are willing to develop us, no matter how great we are. When I was hitting all of those amazing numbers, no one took their eyes off me. My mentors were right there pushing me to go from good to great, right? That is what we want to do with our winners in the business. Now, there's amazing stats on this, so I invite you to research some of this on your own as well. But amazing from Forbes here, 65% of employees would like more feedback than they currently get. That's a huge number. This is the whole workforce, right? So if we aren't connecting with them, there's no way we're gonna be able to guide them to the right space. Now, here's another big one. So I'm sure many of you saw Miss Kim Kardashian. She's got a lot of backlash for this one. She was on an interview, if you didn't see it, and she made the statement that people don't want to work. And I think that's a big misconception. I don't think people want to work at just like a regular old job where they're not taken care of, where people aren't connecting with them, no one's coaching them, no one's mentoring them, no one's letting them understand what that bigger picture is. I don't want to work there either. And trust me, I've seen it. In my early years, this is before I jumped into salons, and those first couple of jobs where I would see what was happening and I would think, you know, I'm really not connecting to this industry, like I'm gonna quit. This isn't for me, I'm not engaged. And then to jump into salons and then just hit the ground running, I realized that was a personal thing that I needed to figure out. So in our interviewing processes, again, use that connection. When I start interviews with anyone, I tell them immediately, before we start with our traditional good old interview questions, who are you? I wanna know what makes you tick. So what do you like? Oh, I like that kind of music too. All of that is good to know. Because again, these are people who are gonna be touching every single one of your clients one way or another, right? Their style is gonna be felt on the floor, their presence across your associates, everyone. So it's important that, again, you use that connection in that interview process. Don't assume that people don't want to work. What you have is someone who isn't engaged and isn't bought in to whatever it is that you're doing. This is step one to any change that you might make within your business. Now, it's a lot of accountability that we all need, right? So as we look inward and we look at connecting with our staff members, we do need to be really accountable. Now, I like to use this example of, let's say you've been dating someone for 5 years, and on every date that you go on, you go to the same restaurant, right? If you're patient, probably after like the 5th time, you'd be like, can we try something new, right? Like pizza, anything else, right? And that's totally fine, right? But in our businesses, we sometimes see that processes haven't been updated in 10, 20 years. We're doing things that we did when we started. I'm not saying you need to go wild and change everything in your operations, but I do believe you need to be accountable and take a look at all of your systems in place and make sure they're really working for the business where it's at today. So this is an incredible important piece. Don't feel so personally tied to some of these things. I used to feel this early in my career where I would create some sort of initiative or have something running in place and I thought it was so good and so amazing, and if someone had anything negative to say about it, I'd be like, you are attacking me, right? I felt that like personal validation through some of these things that I was coaching and doing. That's never the case. Right? We can't feel validated and or personally offended when people leave our business or challenge something that they feel like isn't working for them. We have to be open enough to listen to that and call it what it is, right? If someone is not doing what you need them to do, you either figure out a way to coach them or you let them go, right? There's no point in keeping someone there that isn't engaged in your business if you are fully sure that you're not going to be able to convert them to someone who's bought in. Now, these are just a few little points that I wish I knew when I started, and some of this stuff helped me work a little smarter versus harder. So the first thing was establishing the right business hours. So I did a little silly thing in the beginning where I was like, you know what? We're gonna be open 12 hours a day. I was like, people are gonna come in before work and we're gonna be the only ones open, to get a quick blowout before dinner. No one wanted to do that, right? So what happened there for me and my team, we were stretched over this 12-hour day, right? And it didn't always keep us super productive. It actually hindered our productivity. So what we started to do, this is what it looks like in Boulevard, and this exists with everyone, right? So you'll be able to pull this in whatever system you're using. You can come find me and ask me for help. I've used a lot of the partners out there in my experience. But this was able to show me exactly what my productive hours were, right? I was able to see where the business was coming in and clean up some of those hours that were just making people break down. It's like, oh, I'm here for so long, it's so hard, we need 3 different receptionists to get this day covered, right? So I looked at exactly what is productive, what's that productive hour, how do I staff my productive times within the business? Now, some of this too, right, speaks to the flexibility that you'll be able to create. Now, when it comes to productivity, I don't build goals on a 5-day work week. I don't think that's realistic for today's workforce. They don't want to work 5 days. And how nice would it have been through your careers if you didn't have to as well? Think about all the soccer games and shows and things you would have been able to catch for your kids, or events you would have been able to go to, or a quick weekend getaway, right? That sounds nice. So when you are building your goals, and some of your profit goals especially, please make sure it's based on a world that you can actually sustain. If it requires you to be there 7 days a week, it's not gonna work. At the end of the day, again, you are a person. You can only take on so much. So be smart about the amount of time that you're working. I've been doing this for 15 years, and some of my most productive people are doing $30K a month, working 3 to 4 days a week. It works. Now, from there, I'm going to talk a little bit about this exercise. So this is something that I used when I was actually coaching one-on-one with them. This is a template that I'm also going to be giving to all of you, regardless of what solution you're using. You'll be able to use this. Might take you a little longer on some stuff because you'll have to do a little data entry, but that's okay. Now, what this tool allowed me to do was give them visuals in the conversation of productivity. So what you'll see is, and they look like color wheels too, totally intentional. So you'll see in service hours, that's the actual time that they're working, right? And service sales, the money that they're actually bringing in. So we can actually input exactly what they did the previous week and figure out exactly what happened there. And then I would have another version of this blank, right? Where we can now play a little bit. So instead of, doing all of your base colors, right? What if we added a partial to every single one of those, right? So it looks like we have 21 base colors there and 60 partial highlights. What if we added, let's say even half that? We did 10 to 11 more partial highlights. Look how your service sales skyrocket, right? But your time's still looking pretty good. So this is how we start to coach productivity, because they need to understand the services and the time and the money, they all correlate. We are working with incredibly visual people. They're not going to be able to look at a report and just know what that means. And if you tell them they need to increase their average tickets, You need to tell them how, right? And so we need to also start communicating on their level. So this is a big thing. So when I communicated with anyone in the salon, I have visuals every single time. If there is, I'm from California salon, so we had a ton of payroll changes. I did the same there. I showed them a visual breakdown of how their paycheck is going to look and how it'll change. It's really important that we can transfer this information correctly the first time, because if you're not communicating on their level and you're not being intentional about this, it's like a one and done, right? You think about a first impression. It's the same thing, right? So if we're introducing something new or an idea or something they need to work on, we have to be really intentional about how we communicate that. So for example, if I need someone to increase, let's say $200 a week to hit their goal, I'm not gonna say that. What I'm actually gonna say is, I need you to do 2 more highlights a week. Can you do 2 more highlights a week? Yeah, that's easy. If I throw the numbers in there, there's of course some people that will understand. Not everyone is lacking in that department, but it's so much easier for me to give it to them in a world that they understand, right? So they look at that schedule and they think like, oh, you know what? Susan might want to highlight, or you know, there's Debbie here. I can actually get her a highlight too, right? It becomes much easier for them to now strategize. And you need to do this in real time with them whenever you can, right? Trust me, I get it. I know what it's like to be a salon manager. So at any point, if there is technology or tools that you can use to do some of this, please explore it. Don't be afraid of that type of thing either. You want to make your lives and your team's lives a lot easier as well. Now, once people are bought in, don't go crazy with it, right? If you're going to expand your services, do this in a simple way. So I love to talk about how I kind of mess things up here and there, right? I feel like people really learn from mistakes. It's very easy to like jump up here and tell you everything I did right, but I think some of the valuable stuff is what I did wrong, right? So with services, we worked in a salon that had this amazing treatment menu that we were like cooking up. It was gorgeous. There was 13 treatments on it. They were anywhere from, let's say 25 all the way up to like 150, depending on exactly what they were doing. And we made this gorgeous book. It was printed, all this beautiful imagery, put a lot of effort into it. Now, when we actually rolled that out, nobody really used it. And the reason for that is we didn't give them that big introduction with a big education up front, and we did too much, right? It was difficult even for myself as someone who wanted these things and was like on the phone selling them and everything, to even remember all of the treatments. There's 13, right? It was a lot. And we found that there was 3 of them that ended up being really popular. There's Infinom was a great one, right? Everyone loved that. Our power doses from L'Oreal, super easy, right? So there was treatments that people easily got behind and just ran with. So what happened to my inventory? It collected dust. I had to start selling things at a discounted rate to try and get them just off my shelves. I knew I wasn't going to reorder them, but it was messy for me, right? So learn from my mistakes. If you are going to go back to your salon and implement a bunch of new, whether it's process stuff, services, or anything like that, be really intentional about this and don't do too much too quickly. Create some systems for change. I think one of the smartest things that you can do is create an action plan, right? So that means, what is the change that we are looking to make? Who are the people involved and who needs to buy into this, right? And most importantly, what could go wrong here? Think about these changes before you implement anything, and then go to some of your trusted staff members that you've now transparently connected with, right? And get their opinion. These are going to be the folks doing it, right? They love this stuff. They love being able to see behind the curtain a bit and understanding what's coming up next, and give their opinions. And sometimes, especially if you're not a manager that's also behind the chair, you might not even see what they see. That's an incredibly important piece. Everybody has good input when it comes to the services that were going to be changed, especially by the people who are going to be doing them. So that's really important. So these are all opportunities to educate. Now, I know what it's like to be in the salon and feeling frustrated by not having enough resources. So one thing that is very different now than even 10 years ago is we have so many vendors, so many partners that are willing to actually take that off your plate, right? There's companies out there that will train on technology. My team actually builds full trainings for people learning Boulevard. A lot of the partners you see do their own version of it, right? From L'Oreal to really whoever, they all have education teams that are willing to help you. So when you are planning education, think of a whole calendar that you are going to create for your team, right? And I'm not just talking about services and the craft here. We need that business education. So when you think of education, stop thinking of it as here's where the craft is and here's where the business side is. For this to work, for anyone to truly get it, it needs to be holistic. It needs to be one thing. If you want to be a hairstylist, that means you are a business person. You are creative, and that's amazing, but you're in a business now. This is what we do. So there's no more separation of that. Don't beat yourself up for not understanding the numbers the right way the first time. That's not a big deal. If you're willing to show up and learn, that's what we need, right? And just as Frank said, people who are coachable. That's exactly what we're looking for. Now, some quick tips. I'm a big points user. So if you are working with anyone that accrues points, that's exactly what you should be doing to get either treatments for zero cost. So that whole treatment menu I was telling you about, many of those vendors and the ones that I continued to use, the ones that were popular, were the ones I was able to buy on points. So I was probably maybe paying shipping, right? And getting all of these treatments absolutely free. And then they were happening at the bowl, let's say in 10, 15 minutes at, outside of the commissions and taxes and all of that. I was getting a much better profit margin on those treatments than I was with my haircuts and color, right? So this is how you start gaming the system. I'm always happy to see American Express at this. They're incredible for the small business. That's another place where you can use points to help your business, right? So I loved anything that I can use towards points, and you can even get Boulevard on points. So this is very, very important if you're looking to really increase some of those profit margins. And I'm out of time here. I see the clock flashing. So I'm going to finish this up here quickly with embracing change and pay it forward. If you ever see me speak anywhere, I will always bring it back to this. It's very easy to be afraid of change, right? But if you think about it, we are the industry that people come to for a change. You're going through something big, a big moment, a wedding, a graduation, a breakup, our personal favorite, right? We are those people that they come to for that. So it's kind of silly when you think about it that we're the ones who kind of get a little freaked out about things changing, right? Embrace it. And again, I already mentioned no gatekeeping, right? You might be frustrated with your team. You might feel that these people aren't bought in, but you cannot change your tone as a leader. You need to constantly be in that mode of a coach and remove boss from your entire vocabulary, right? You are a mentor, you are a coach, and you are offering real leadership to these folks. That's a very, very meaningful thing. And just as I said, we are an industry of underdogs sometimes, right? We have a very important position as business managers in this industry. We are allowing people that may not have had that moment to shine to be in the spotlight and do really well, and on top of that, eventually make hundreds of thousands of dollars. I tell everyone, I'm a high school, I finished high school, but I did not finish college. That was not my world, right? But I've been able to see incredible success in this industry. So we gotta protect this, right? We gotta keep it safe, we gotta keep it open, and we have to keep it transparent. So I promise you, paying it forward and embracing that change and really connecting with people in the way that I'm asking you to, you're not gonna go wrong doing this. Now, I love people. I love talking to everyone and connecting with everyone. So regardless if you use Boulevard or not, I'm totally willing to help and chat with you about your business. I work with people all the time that are using, either a competitive solution or something else, and they come seek advice, and that's totally fine. I said before, I do believe myself to be an advocate for this industry. No, it does not matter what you're using. Feel free to email me, and I'm happy to work through any of the opportunities that you have and challenges, of course. Now, just a little bit on Boulevard here, of course, one of our lovely sponsors and my employer. We have some amazing businesses on our dashboard, and I love being able to work with teams like this. So one thing that's amazing about Boulevard is we've created a real community where education is at the forefront of that, right? And that looks like a lot of different things. It's not just about how to use the platform, right? It's stuff like this that we're talking about today, how we move the needle in this industry. I hate that there's so many myths about us, right? I want to be out there in the world busting all of those myths that make us look bad, because that's not at all what's happening here in our world, right? So I've really been able to find that in Boulevard and really create a home for myself there. That's all for me, everyone. Thank you so much.